Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
We'll hear the damage which a no-deal Brexit could cause, and the spending pledges of the two Tory leadership contenders continue to dominate politics, with the Chancellor warning a disorderly exit could deliver a £90 billion hit to the economy. Boris Johnson continued to dismiss the warnings. Our business editor, Siobhan Kennedy, reports.
As politicians talk tough on no deal, a solid reminder from the real world. The construction industry today warned new orders in June fell to their lowest level in more than a decade. No surprise, Brexit uncertainty one of the biggest factors.
Jeremy Hunt, ladies and gentlemen.
The dire figures, though, didn't feature on the campaign trail as the two Tory leadership candidates sold themselves and a potential no deal in Northern Ireland.
This may be the Chancellor's last Treasury questions. I just want to thank him.
But back in Westminster, Philip Hammond, counting the days till his own expected exit, stepped up his offensive, putting a hefty price tag on a messy exit from Europe.
The government's analysis suggests that in a disruptive no-deal exit, there will be a hit to the exchequer of about £90 billion. That will also have to be factored in to future spending and tax decisions.
Conscious of the fact he may only be here for a few more weeks, Mr Hammond is ratcheting up the pressure, today reiterating that every single penny of the £26-odd billion he's painstakingly put aside would immediately be soaked up in the event of a no-deal Brexit, never mind having any cash in reserve for tax and spending measures. And he put the boot in further, reminding Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt that the no-deal piggy bank would be spent multiple times over if the government's long-term predictions about the impact of a no-deal Brexit are to be believed. The Chancellor's £90 billion prediction, first made last autumn, was dismissed then by some Brexiteers not as Project Fear, but Project Hysteria. Today, Boris Johnson was typically bullish about life after no deal.
I think we should be very positive about Brexit, and we should not be terrified of a no-deal Brexit. We should not be terrified of coming out on WTO terms. We will make sure we look after the agriculture interest. And I think a lot of the negativity about a WTO Brexit has been wildly overdone.
Even Jeremy Hunt, who'd previously warned no deal would be political suicide, appeared to be warming to the idea.
You've been accused of trying to out Boris. You've become very, very Brexity all of a sudden. Some people are saying that's another flip-flop.
Not at all. I've always thought we need to go further and faster on no-deal preparations.
Jeremy Hunt says an extension is still on the cards, but Mr Johnson insists he wants out.
I gave his predecessor a little red book as a present. We have another red book. But this is a guide to London's rebel walks, and we hope he'll enjoy it in his leisure periods.
Amid the dire warnings, a parting gift for the Chancellor today from his adversary.
I have to say I haven't read this one, and I have read the other one.
The Chancellor's parting gift for his own side, though, perhaps less well received.
Jeremy Hunt has announced a 10-point plan to get Britain ready for Brexit, including ramping up no-deal preparations. We already know that will involve the stockpiling, once again, of vital medicines imported from the EU. But Newsnight has exclusively seen new data which suggests a big question mark over the capacity of the British warehouse sector to absorb another round of stockpiling by UK firms ahead of potential major supply disruption of imports from the 31st of October. Here's our economics editor, Ben Chu.
It's stockpiling time for the UK economy. Again. The likely next Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, says we will leave the EU on Halloween, the 31st of October, come what may, do or die, even if that means departing without a deal.
If we were to leave the EU without a transition period, the government itself warns that we could see severe transport disruption and the possible interruption of supplies of food, goods, medicines and industrial parts from the EU, hence the need to stockpile locally.
The government confirmed last week that it will be, once again, looking to secure extra warehousing space for medicines as part of its no-deal preparations. Private companies are also expected to stockpile, just as they did earlier in the year before the 29th of March deadline.
But hold on, there could be a big problem here. Is there actually the space available to do this stockpiling? Data seen exclusively by Newsnight shows that the estimated nationwide vacancy rate for warehouses of over 100,000 square feet currently stands at just 6.8%. That suggests very little spare capacity to do any kind of extra stockpiling ahead of a potential no-deal Brexit on the 31st of October. The reality is that it may be impossible for many firms to do this kind of stockpiling.
In terms of capacity in the market at the moment, I would say the warehousing sector is running fairly full, pretty much on 100%. There'd be less capacity now than there was in the first quarter of this year in the build-up to the March deadline, because any small amounts of incremental space that were available were taken up. I just don't see there being that amount of space available in the way that perhaps the politicians are thinking it may be at this time.
An additional problem is the timing of the 31st of October Brexit deadline.
So October's coming right at, for our industry, peak season. Peak season normally or historically being the run up to Christmas, but now of course it's not just Christmas, it's Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and in the non-food sector those special promotions for Halloween. It's all coinciding around the end of October.
So in many ways, the worst possible time to be expecting a potential stockpiling surge.
Yes, it couldn't have come at a worse time for the logistics industry.
The picture is uneven nationally. The warehouse vacancy rate is as high as 10.6% in the West Midlands and 9.6% in the North West. But the South East has just 3.8% spare capacity. And in the inner M25 area, it's as low as 2.2%. This rate is lower than it was even a year earlier. Wincanton has a 480,000 square foot warehouse in Greenford, West London. Marcus Hart is Wincanton's Group Transformation and Risk Director.
In this warehouse we're running very close to capacity. We are already seeing stock build for Brexit at the moment.
How busy do you anticipate being in that run up to the 31st of October?
Very busy, and traditionally November and December are our busiest periods of the year, so we would be running at or very close to capacity up to and during that period.
Some industry experts say that what really matters is not the vacancy rate, but the amount of space available specifically for short-term let. But for both types of storage, the picture is one of growing stress. This is partly due to the rise of e-commerce as companies like Amazon requisition vast distribution centres. There's also been a lack of new building. New land, say analysts, increasingly tends to be used for residential purposes rather than business storage. Though the national vacancy rate is now 6.8%, as recently as 2009 it was 24%. In the run-up to March, firms seem to have been able to use their spare capacity in their warehouse estates to stockpile. But they may find a nasty shock long before Halloween itself if they try and repeat the same this time round. And so might the next Prime Minister if he thinks UK businesses and the UK economy can be ready for the fallout of a no-deal Brexit.